Good morning. First, it's an honor to be here. I'm a recruiter in the industry, not a producer like all of you. So it's exciting. And thank you, HBS dealer, Amy, Ken, everyone involved for putting just a wonderful event together. It was so much fun last night to watch the incredible female leaders we already have in the industry and the rising stars. That is probably what got me the most excited. I hope that did everyone else. We need more. We need more. I started in the industry with Andersen Windows. Like everybody, Andersen Windows, we all said we'd never work in Andersen Windows because we grew up right next to the plant, but I decided I should. And I worked in production for, I don't know if it was 6 or 8 months. And by about the 4-month mark, I started applying to get out of that place and get into the office because 3 shifts, it's a lot of work. But I got to tell you, 50% of the employees were absolutely female, and they were wonderful. I worked right alongside a gal who was a double major. I'm like, what do you do? She's like, I don't have to worry about anything here. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to be involved, like all of you, in being able to impact, and not only myself, but the business in a different way. So I was fortunate enough to be hired into the Circle of Excellence group, more focused in my case on DSN, which is the Dealer Service Network. And I don't know if that even exists any longer. That was beginning of 2000, where we were focused on working directly with the dealers, much like all of you that were selling our product, teaching them sales, value proposition, and ultimately service. Got to know some incredible individuals along the way. I must say, mostly men. So in 2005, I decided I just really am not about this corporate thing anymore. I loved everybody I worked with, but I just didn't want to be part of it. I had an opportunity to step into recruiting. Didn't know what that was. Thought this would be a fun challenge, and it happened to be in the building materials industry. So the transfer of knowledge and understanding of the dealer base was very, very helpful. So I remember my first big project. I had to reach out. We were looking for a regional manager in the LBM industry and one-step dealer for a pretty big region. And I had to call some pretty big lumber GMs. First call. I'm prepared. I've got my script. I'm going to make the call. I get on the phone, and this wonderful individual answers the phone. I introduce myself, and he says to me, "Well, honey, how can I help you today?" So I thought to myself, okay, I'm not going to hang up. I'm not going to give up. I know exactly what I have to ask. I know exactly what I'm looking for, and I'm going to make it through. So we had about a 30-minute conversation. At the end of the 30 minutes, by the way, I did get his resume. We submitted it to one of the top candidates. Did I just lose everybody? There we go. He ended, though, with, "Thank you, ma'am." I'm not a fan of that word. I don't think any of us are. But at that point in time, it was the most incredible word I've ever heard in my life, because I realized that I made a difference. I am no different than anybody else, male, female, whatever. I'm just there doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's helping people find new opportunities to impact their lives and their careers and bring impact for our clients. So a lot has changed since 2005, thank goodness. But as I was researching and trying to understand what is the breakdown of women professionals in our industry and other industries, tripped on a CNBC clip from October that was talking about the workforce in the US for 2021. In September of 2021, 309,000 women left the workforce in the US. We're nodding. There's 1,000 reasons why. We could have a whole nother event around those reasons, right? But here's what's crazy. 182,000 men entered the workforce. Where did everyone go? So, as an executive recruiter, we have a wide industry view. And I thought to myself, I'm not really sure that those numbers are representative of what we have in our industry. When we take on a project, we ask questions, we have a scorecard, what's required, what's desired. I've got to tell you, less than 20% of our placements over the last handful of years have been women. And of that, less than 5% have been women in leadership roles. Why? And I think that's why we're here. Why as an industry are we still struggling to attract and retain more wonderful women like everybody here? How do we take advantage of that? How can we be better? So, here's these lovely ladies that are being really patient with me. I'm really fortunate to be beside these three amazing leaders, each of which you're going to learn have their very own unique stories of how they entered the industry, their success along the way. And I'm just going to let them introduce themselves. And I'm going to be quiet for a minute.
Very good. Good morning, everybody. I'm Wendy Whiteash. I'm Executive Vice President of Culture and Chief Human Resources Officer for USLBM. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
I'm Sue Kasko, and I'm the Director of Talent Development for 84 Lumber, and I'm glad to be here as well.
Hi, I'm Mai-Tal. I am with Building Industry Partners, and I work in the Center of Excellence for that organization. So we are a private equity company, which means we buy companies, we try to help them grow, and then we sell them. And what the Center of Excellence does, which is a really unique offering in a private equity company, is it tries to make sure that our companies are great places to work. So we focus on that in terms of recruiting our leaders, and then we work with those leadership teams through leadership offsites, creation of competence frameworks, to try and make sure that the industry is attractive to people coming from outside the industry, and also that we are enabling and developing all the up-and-coming leaders, including great women leaders.
So we've been informed by audio. We need to pick it up. Can you hear us better now? Okay. Sorry about that.
So, okay. Do you guys want to share? You want this one?
I think we could share.
Okay. So what they didn't share is how they got into the industry. And I love their stories, and they're all very unique. But here's what I want you to think about. How many of them had industry knowledge?
All right, so I told this story last night. Now, this has taken us back some years when I was in my junior year of college, looking for my first big career. And, you know, I'm dating myself, but back then there wasn't Indeed. Like, you actually had to go meet people. So I was walking a career fair, you know, all bright-eyed chipper with my resumes printed out, and I had a recruiter stop me in the middle of the aisle, and he introduced himself, and so what's your major? What do you want to do? And I said, I'm an accounting major, and I don't want to do accounting. So I had learned that. And he said, well, I have the perfect opportunity for you. How would you like to run your own business? And that was Ferguson Enterprises. I was with Ferguson, who's one of the largest wholesale distributors of pipe valves and fittings. So it's similar business. The model's the same. Most of the customer base is the same. But, you know, what grabbed me into this industry wasn't about pipe or valves or lumber or doors and window. It was the opportunity. And it truly just grabbed me in. So I learned the business from the bottom up. I worked in the warehouse. I worked in inside sales. I worked on the counter. I learned logistics. I learned shipping and receiving, pricing, collections, and credit. I started out as a credit manager and did that for a couple of years, and then moved into operations, where I learned more about the products, pricing, inventory management. So I actually came into HR later in my career, and joined USLBM about 8 years ago, which USLBM, it was a shell of a company back then as it is today. But I think it's been, you know, what I share with women that I work with in talent development is, you know, the more you can learn about all aspects of the supply chain and of the business just makes you more valuable. And that's served me really well to learn all different aspects of the business as I've continued to grow.
So as Michele teed up there, my story is very different. After college, when I went to school, I wanted to work in the hotel industry. That was what I always wanted to do. So after college, that's what I did. I went to go work for the Ritz-Carlton. I worked in operations, and I thought this is the career for me. And then, as happens with many young people, I changed my mind, and I said, this isn't the career for me. But what I took away from that was a great, for me, insight into, wow, how important are people to a business? And whether that's a service business or the businesses that we are all in today, people are so important to it. And so I went back to school, I got my MBA, and I focused on HR. And after that, I joined the airline industry. So I worked for US Airways when it existed for a long time. And I worked there in helping build career paths, learning, development, leadership development, talent, and then moved from there to Dick's Sporting Goods, where I worked for about 9 or 10 years, doing similar kind of work, looking at how do we take talent into the company and develop leaders who can run our stores, run our business, and be part of the culture of that company. And then from there, I joined 84 Lumber. So I came to 84 Lumber a little over 3 years ago with no industry experience. So I did not grow up in the industry. But one thing that 84 Lumber has in common with everywhere else I worked is that people are so important to our success as a company. And so there today, I have been on that learning path, learning about all the aspects of our industry, of our business over the last 3 years. And during that time, then focusing on how do we do those things at 84? How do we attract talent? But then once it's there, how do we keep people? How do we create a career path that's exciting for them, opportunities to grow their career and really achieve success? And so that's my focus there. And I continue to learn about the business.
Well, I hope so. Okay, so I was actually almost a part of the She-Cession, which is a word I was trying not to say because it's very difficult to say. I am a management consultant by training, and had been working from home with 2 kids that weren't at school and thinking, okay, I'm supporting pharma companies. I don't know if that's really my life's mission. This is all getting really hard. I think I'm gonna just take a step back. And really, really luckily for me, the partners at Building Industry Partners said, hey, why don't you come over here? We are trying to create great workplaces, attract great female talent and diverse talent from outside the industry. Why don't you give this a go and see if we can build some companies together and make them fantastic places to work that create opportunities for people. So I think I'm the newbie to the industry, but it's been fantastic so far.
So, really, nobody entered with industry experience. But what many of you have mentioned is potential. Share with me, each of you have different ways of attracting these individuals, and a lot of them, as we're bringing individuals into, certainly there's potential, and in some cases, many of you had kind of a transferable skill or competency, but still not the industry knowledge. I know you have all kind of created programs and systems. Can you share a little bit more about maybe your training programs or different opportunities that have been helpful to bring and attract a more diverse talent force to your companies?
Sure. So I was sharing with the group that I really believe in this idea, which I think I stole from a public service announcement, but I'm not sure. This, if you can see it, you can be it. Have you seen those commercials? I think it's public service announcement, but I mean, isn't that the truth, right? That when you bring candidates into your workplace and there are no women or there are no people of color or there are no, whatever those underrepresented groups are in our workforce, it may be difficult to see what is the career path for that candidate. So what we've done at USLBM of late is really try to highlight individuals who have, broken all those unconscious biases or paradigms and tell their stories as individuals. So if you follow us at all on LinkedIn, you may have seen some of these stories, and some of the women are in the audience today. So we have Heather Young. Hi, Heather. So Heather is our trust plant manager in the Philadelphia area, and she came in with no experience as well and got into design and just learned about production. So there's a story about Heather and what it took to get her to this spot now where she owns a P&L and she's running a team. Sherry, I'm gonna say hi to Sherry. I'm just so proud of them. Because I feel like they should be on stage and not me. But Sherry started out in the business sheeting wall panels in a plant. I mean, that's but busting work people, if you've never seen that done, and worked her way up and earned the credibility and the know-how, and now today runs it. She's a project manager in one of our biggest divisions in USLBM. So, when you ask about the training, I think it's about, you need some basic training around the industry and the technical knowledge. But to me, I think these ladies would say it's more about mentorship, allyship, on-the-job training, real time, having access to resources and support as you're learning and as you're growing along the way, just making sure that the environments that we're bringing these candidates into are ready for them. They're ready to support and develop. So that's an important part of training, just as much as classroom training.
I totally agree about the on-the-job training. And I think that's a key piece of what we do. And when I think about kind of framing it up, how do we create opportunity for women, other people, I say, we invite anyone to join 84 with no industry experience. So kind of casting the net wide, so to speak. We focus on developing individuals, whatever point they join in our career, from the bottom up, so to speak. We talk about promoting from within. And, as I mentioned, I've worked for lots of organizations, and everywhere I worked, we talked about promoting from within. But it is a real thing at 84. Almost 100% of our store managers are promoted from within, and almost all of them started our manager training program, which is our entry-level program. And that is an entry point, as I said, for anyone. And there we give that base of knowledge around the industry. We focus on what are the basics you need to know to be successful. And that, Michele, you asked about like potential and what you look for and transferable knowledge. It's some of those more, we don't use the word competencies, but competencies or characteristics that people have. Do you have a strong work ethic? Do you want to work? Do you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Are you willing to take initiative and drive your career? So once you put those ingredients together with that base knowledge, I think it's that on-the-job training, and it's that experience that you give people. And how do you be intentional about saying, we have multiple career paths. What experience do you need to go in those different directions, and focus on that?
So we take a very similar approach, but we have a really different context. So, USLBM is a massive organization now, and 84 likewise, and has a long-standing, very well-known training program. In fact, our platform president in Georgia is a graduate of 84's training program. But we're working with small companies that have 1 or 2 locations when we start out. And it's how do we support them to combat some of the unconscious bias or, identify potential. So the way we try to coach our leaders to work with people is to say, think about it in 3 categories, right? There's track record and experiences. That's what they've done before. That's great. There's the competencies. There's what they can bring now, specifically around transferable skills. So developing people, leading teams, seeing into the future. And then there's potential. And we make that sort of an equal third element. So once you identify that potential and you can see the gaps in terms of competencies or track record, then you can coach to it. And we really encourage that coaching and mentorship to be very explicit and thoughtful, because I think when you have very informal networks of mentorship, people tend to just gravitate towards folks that remind them of themselves. So that young person over there reminds me of me when I was 20 and getting into the industry. I'm going to help them out. And if there's no one in the leadership team that looks at you and thinks that, then you might miss out on some mentorship and opportunities. So we try to really formalize that and guide our leadership teams towards that.
That's difficult, because not every business has a mentor program or individuals that have mentored before or know how to ask for that. And that's a whole nother, that's another session we're going to get into, and it's going to be awesome. But the allyship piece, right? Something that all of you said without saying, I think, is curiosity. When we vet, it's our word, candidates for jobs, one thing we don't necessarily put on our scorecard, but internally we all talk about, what is their level of curiosity? Curiosity often equals continuous improvement and wanting to grow. And so I think what I'm hearing is so many of the people that you're attracting are those individuals that are curious and want to continue to grow and challenge themselves. And you're giving them a platform, an opportunity, and hopefully some relationships to help them get there. A lot of building the allyship is networking. We spoke previously as we prepared for this, and we talked about that it's a big golf industry. I think that was your comment, Sue. What are some things? How can we help each other find opportunities to network? I mean, most of us, Mai-Tal, you mentioned you almost left the workforce because you have a family, you have pressures, you have other responsibilities. You work a 10, 12-hour day. You can't go to whatever event because you also have other responsibilities. I will say, though, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's been quite an uptick in men that have jumped into that role. Awesome. How do you guys help, or how have you been able to create your network, or maybe some tips for everybody in the group to build that network, to develop the allyship that I think is really crucial?
I think it's twofold. I think that you talk about the golf thing, right? So the deal with golf is it's not about the golf. Right? It's about that one-on-one time when you're sitting in a cart next to somebody for 4 hours and the sort of informal conversation and discussion that comes up. And then naturally relationships develop. So where can you find that? It's not just on, posting a blog to LinkedIn. You have to meet people. You have to find common connection. You have to seek out people who are really great at the skill or the competency that you're trying to develop. And even if there's not a formal mentor program, I have so many mentors that I don't even think they know they're my mentor, right? It's seeking out people who you can learn from and help and learn. We were talking last night about some of the opportunities for women to support women. There's so many great opportunities out there, with habitat builds that are specific for women in construction. I think you have a couple others that I don't remember off the top of my head. Maybe you could share, but I think that's one piece of it. But the other side is really, we have men in our workplaces that we need to network as well. So not waiting for it to come to you, but going out and seeking that counsel and relationship.
Yeah, those informal conversations are sometimes where you build those bonds and relationships. So I agree, like finding places you can do that. And I don't golf, and as I said last night to these ladies, I'm like, I'm not planning to take it up right now. So I have to find other ways to connect with people. And so I definitely agree with that. And I also think about like how, Wendy alluded to women helping women. And I would challenge that. I know there are men in the room too, like men helping women, right? And I think in our careers, if you can have mentors, that's really important. Mai-Tal mentioned coaching too, like coaching others. And then there's sponsorship. And, we can all sponsor each other. It's that what you say about someone when they're not in the room. And I think, wow, I met someone and we're having a conversation and I have an opportunity to say, wow, Michele did this great work on this project. You should see the insight she has into ABC, whatever it is. Those opportunities we have to sponsor each other, it's not a formal thing. It's not succession planning conversations necessarily, but just sponsorship is really important as well. And we can all do that for each other, men and women together.
Yeah, I obviously agree with everything that's been said. I think that curiosity is a huge part of it, like Michele said. So I genuinely want to know like what everyone in this room is doing and is up to, and that's interesting to me. So I think that that's helpful in networking generally. The other one is, I guess, believe that you have a seat at the table. So one of my colleagues, he's one of the partners, Pat, he doesn't golf, and he went to his first big LBM exec session, and it was a golf event. And he asked, hey guys, I don't golf. I'm going to be terrible, but I really want to be here with you. Will it bother people if I play? And I was like, never would have occurred to me to do that. Like never. But he believed he had a seat at the table. He believed he could make a valuable contribution and that would also be valuable to him. So he joined. And I guess on the allyship point, everyone in this room and all the big leaders in the industry believe in this, are leaning into this, have resources for it, whether it's 84 or US LBM or Kodiak and Dina's Women of LBM group. Everyone wants to lean into this space. So I think there's lots of opportunities for us to connect.
One other thing that is hard for women, and because it is, because we tend to get additional responsibilities all the time. Again, men are stepping up. Flexibility in the workplace. This isn't an industry where you can kind of just say, oh, I'm not going to build that trust right now because I got to go take my daughter to her doctor's appointment. It's tough. And I think that may be a reason there's this creating a little bit of a barrier for some women to get into the industry. Have any of you had success in creating some flexibility or opportunities for employees in general to be able to embrace these needs to be more flexible in the industry that we have chosen?
You know, I don't think there's a silver bullet here, but what I find is that the managers who are the most productive, have the best retention, have the lowest safety incidents, they are the ones who embrace this, right? The flexibility, the leaning into the needs of the employees. So I think it happens at a very local level. I will say that I think this whole COVID time has been sort of the great equalizer of this phenomenon, that it's not just women anymore that are stepping up and saying, I want to go to my kid's soccer game. We hear just as much from men who want to be involved with coaching their children, or, you know, are being there to help with aging parents and things like that. So I really think this is becoming more of a workforce in general issue and not just a women's issue. And the managers who have figured out how to stagger shifts in the trust plant or in the distribution centers, they're the ones that are winning in terms of productivity and engagement and retention.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think that individual flexibility allows you to cater to the person too and what they need from you. And, you know, I would say the same is true for us, that we have managers who are looking at the people on their team and saying, at this point in your life, this week, whatever it is, you know, what do you need and what can I do within the bounds of, hey, we have to get the load out and that has to happen. So how do we make that happen? So that is definitely true. And I think as we've been through the last couple of years, and we haven't really directly talked about it right now today, but this idea of labor shortage, right? How do we attract people to our industry, to our companies? And it's not just the building industry. Of course, it reaches further than that, but thinking about that being more flexible, maybe that's part of it. I know for us, it's pushed us to maybe try some things that we've never tried before. And, you know, they might not be revolutionary in the workforce, but even doing things like offering different kind of bonuses, testing out different work week structures. So, you know, does it work? And trying it in small places and seeing what works, kind of that test and learn approach will give us opportunity to find those things that will work, even in the confines of our industry.
Yeah, fantastic. I think to us, it comes down to being really clear about where you can insert flexibility. So people assume that it's this kind of operation, that means absolutely everyone needs to work these hours. Well, no, probably not. There are some roles that do and some roles that don't, and we should think about the role and the individual and really make it work. And so we try to describe our approach as people focused. So as much as we're trying to inject different ideas, we're trying to talk to the employees and figure out, you tell us, because we're going to have assumptions sitting over where we are, but you tell us what's going to work for you.
And I think that as professionals, we're all very aware of what our responsibilities are, and we have to get our stuff done. But we also know how to balance and coordinate and prioritize things, and giving individuals, right, the flexibility to be responsible for those things, knowing that they know, we're all adults, we're all professional, we know what we have to get done. If you leave for an hour or two during the day and you want to go work at home or come back in or do whatever you can do, I think providing those opportunities is awesome. We could certainly continue to go on, but I know Ken and Amy had asked if maybe we could open up the mics if anybody had any questions. Any one of us, happy to answer as best we can. Don't all jump at once.
Oh, we have one.
Oh, yay.
Where are you? Is it on?
First of all, thank you so much. Really appreciate this opportunity and to listen to you ladies and be a part of this space in this room. I had a question specifically for Wendy. You know, USLBM is acquiring a lot of lumber yards. A lot of different cultures are coming into your business. What are your thoughts to address that and how to manage that?
Yes, we've done a couple acquisitions this year. You know, I have to tell you that our company was formed in 2009 by LT Gibson. He was here last night. He's not here this morning, so I'm not kissing up to him with what I'm about to say because he won't hear it. But he is truly a visionary leader. And when he started the company in 2009, he started with the company with this premise that he wanted to create a company that was different in this space, that really was about investing in people on the front line so that they're empowered to make decisions right in front of the customer, to invest in technology, and so forth. And that was and is still the culture that we espouse to today. So when we're out and looking for new partners and acquisition targets, you know, we don't go and buy the companies that are struggling, that need to be turned around. That's just not been our acquisition strategy. We're looking for, you know, the best performers in the various markets who want to join us in this effort. And oftentimes those companies that join us, they have the same beliefs, but they haven't had the CapEx to invest in the technology, or they just haven't had the resources to hire a talent development professional or invest in lean training with the University of Wisconsin. So those are the things that we bring to acquisition. So it's really, it ends up being a great marriage that we're not trying to replace the culture that our new acquisition partners come. We believe that there is common ground in those companies that we've acquired, and we help take them from good to great, right? From doing awesome to doing awesomer. Is that a word?
It is today.
So yeah, common ground is part of the what's important when we're looking at who we're partnering with.
Culture is extremely important. And when on my side of the table talking to candidates for potential opportunities, the question always is, what's the culture? How am I going to fit in? And I'll tell you what, they can be the best at absolutely everything they do, but if that culture doesn't match, they will never, ever, ever be successful. And so we look for companies that are focused on culture, and that's something that we rank our clients on. If you don't have a great culture, we can't help you. We can't force anybody to be part of your team. So it's awesome to hear stories. I know, Mai-Tal, you have some leaders that are excellent in absorbing their companies too. Can you share with us kind of what their...
Yeah, of course. So we have a very different target than USLBM. And so we do tend to buy companies that are smaller, sometimes struggling, and try to bring in an entrepreneurial visionary leader to try and create this great place to work. And actually, Building Industry Partners was an early investor in USLBM. So there's a lot of synergy across how we think about these things. So that's really difficult because you have the culture that exists on the ground, and they hear us say, we're people focused, we want to create a great workplace. And at the same time, what they're feeling and observing is a lot of change. And so that's really difficult. And I'm not going to say that it isn't, but we truly believe that we can bring people along on the journey, and that ultimately that's a better place for the industry to be in. So we need to help the great people get even greater, and then we need to bring along the rest of the industry.
Awesome.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate hearing your stories. My question is for Mai-Tal. You said that part of your role right now is running a center of excellence for small companies that your PE owns, that your focus is making those places great places to work. What specifically are some of the traits that make a company a great place to work, in your opinion?
That's a great question. So actually what I try not to do is to come in with a preconceived notion of what I think will make a place great. So we tend to work very closely with the leadership team to develop some goals around it. We do recommend, we don't force, sort of a baseline engagement survey so we can figure out how folks are feeling, what's going on, what they're doing, and then have some workshops with employees off the back of that survey to understand, okay, so in this location, we scored this way. Why are people feeling that way? What can we do to change that? And then develop programs off the basis of that. But I guess if I am to share my personal opinion, I would say that I think it's a great workplace is someplace where everyone has a voice and knows that they are going to be able to contribute meaningfully to the goals of the company. So they understand the goals, they understand their role in supporting them, and they have opportunities to inform how to do things even better.
I was just going to add when you said that, there are some of those baseline things as humans, things that you want, right? A place where you're respected, like there's some level of respect, you have an opportunity to have a voice. But I also think a great place to work can be individual. I've worked for different organizations and I would call several of them great places to work. But if it's not for you, then it's not a great place for you. So sometimes it's about finding the fit and I think that references what you were saying, Michele, is, for me, 84 Lumber is a great place to work. Would it be a great place for everyone? I don't know. I can't speak for them. So some of it is about that fit too. Once you establish the baseline things that I think humans appreciate.
So we have time for one more question. Does anybody have a question? All right. So let's thank our panel. Michele, do you want to go ahead and close it up?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. There was one thing, and I'll just leave this with a thought because we don't have time, but something we missed. She-Cession is as much about people leaving as it is about trying to keep them. And some things that you guys just brought up were surveys, employee engagement, listening to what the employees want. That equals retention at the end of the day. And you all have excellent examples of how that's been successful, and that's why you have great teams. So I just want to thank everyone. We're all available. We're all here till the end of the, 11:30 when we wrap?
Correct. Yes, you got it.
So I just thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And just thank you for being just great examples of what women can be in this industry.